So Gwenn is a social worker by training. She has lived with chronic pain for 23 years as a result of a motor vehicle accident. And frustrated by the lack of resources for people with pain, in 1999, she founded Pain Connection, a national network of chronic pain support groups, support group leader trainings, and other resources for people with pain. In 2016, Pain Connection joined forces with US Pain Foundation. We now offer more than a dozen, well, actually now it's 15 in-person support groups across the country. We offer regular conference call support groups 3 times a month. And we also have weekend support groups, leader trainings. We had 3 this year alone. So most recently, Gwenn was appointed to the Interagency Pain Research Coordinating Committee, which is a mouthful, but it's the highest ranking pain policy oversight committee in the country. And in addition to her work with Pain Connection and US Pain, Gwenn is the co-author of the book, Making the Invisible Visible, a Chronic Pain Manual for Healthcare Providers. And she also has a private psychotherapy practice in Tucson, Arizona, where she lives. So Gwenn is very clearly an extremely experienced, talented person. And she has a ton of background in mindfulness. She's been teaching it through her support group networks for many years. So we're very excited to have her here with us today and giving us sort of an overview of mindfulness to reduce stress and pain. So, Gwenn, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, and I don't know if an attendee can you guys see Gwenn's webcam? Anybody? Yes, okay, I just got a yes. Thank you, Jessica, Shirley, and Mary. All right, so they can see you, that's great. So whenever you're ready, we can get started.
Yeah. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the presentation today. And the first thing I want to say is that I see myself as a student of mindfulness. I don't see myself as an expert. My practice has developed, over the years since I've had chronic pain. Before my accident 23 years ago, I was studying with a healer in Bethesda, Maryland, Mirtek Workus. And so through his practice, I was developing, deep insight and meditation. So along the way, through the process of having chronic pain, that's what I would continually turn to. And most of the times in those beginning years after the accident, it was very hard to do because the pain was so intense. So it took time for me to develop it because the last thing I wanted to do was to be close to my pain. I wanted to push it away and forget about it. So it is a process. It doesn't happen right away. And everybody, I feel, develops their own relationship with mindfulness. And even though, we learn and we take classes in a set way, because of our bodies and our chronic pain, we're able to do certain things and not able to do other things, or we learn how to modify it. So it really comes down to what you're able to do and how you can incorporate it into your life. And that's okay, So I just want everybody to feel comfortable about that. So we're just going to start out with a quote from Jack Kornfield, and he was trained as a Buddhist monk in Thailand, Burma, and India. And he's been teaching since 1974. When we get too caught up in the busyness of the world, we lose connection with one another and ourselves. And really with chronic pain, when we have chronic pain, we do lose connection with ourselves, our total selves. I mean, we're only focused on one aspect, and that's, dealing with the pain. So next slide, please. So mindful practices, okay, it's a way of working with the mind and the body to decrease pain and suffering and increase happiness. And I just want to keep emphasizing what chronic pain does to us, or chronic conditions do to us. It does separate our mind and body, because when we have chronic pain, we still live in the past and our mind is what we used to be, but the pain is now in the present, and it's telling us what we are. So there is a disconnect between the mind and the body, and that's what makes more suffering and more intense pain. So usually involves a form of meditation, which is formal and informal practices. And formal practice is, the 8-week program that John Kabat-Zinn developed. And the informal practices are, doing like mountain meditation, a lake meditation, grounding yourself, doing yoga, sensory awareness. So there's all different types of meditations. And it does evolve from the Buddhist tradition. Next slide, please. And I also wanted to just say one thing, that mindfulness practice is not just the, looking into yourself and the breathing and trying to clear your head, but it also includes yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, centering, prayer, chanting, and also it's really nutrition. So it's a more holistic approach. So mindfulness, the awareness that emerges through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience moment by moment. And I know that's a mouthful. And what's really hard when we have pain is to not be judgmental of ourselves, because we're always comparing ourselves before the pain started, what we used to do. So we're constantly judging ourselves. So the practice of mindfulness is learning to just look at what's going on in our body, with curiosity and not judging it, and just staying in the very moment, which is very hard for us when we have chronic pain. So another part of that is also, having compassion for ourselves and having interest and being, friendliness to ourselves. And what's hard with mindfulness too is that when we sit with ourselves, a lot of times we get those negative thoughts. And we just need to look at them as thoughts and nothing that's set in stone. Next one, please. So what mindfulness is not. So it's clearing the mind, becoming non-feeling, pain-free, always a peaceful experience, easy, what you think. So clearing the mind is really a misconception, because what mindfulness is doing is it's allowing us to think and just to be aware of our thoughts. Becoming non-feeling, it's a reality oriented, because you're in the moment. Pain-free, what happens because we're sitting with the pain, we do get more distress in the beginning, and it's hard not to distract ourselves and move away from the pain. Always a peaceful experience. That's the same thing of not being that pain-free in the moment. Easy, it takes time to develop a practice. Everybody has to develop a relationship, and there are some people that are not able to do it. So they, in this kind of setting, but they're able to maybe listen to music or, look at a beautiful picture, and that way they get some mindfulness into their life. And what you think. And it's not what we think, but it's our experience. It's our consciousness and awareness, and we're not avoiding what's going on. Next slide, please. So the paradigm shift, which is really, change in approach. It's reframing traditional-based and mindfulness-based ways of dealing. Well, we're talking now about chronic pain, chronic conditions. So this quote, if we can really understand the problem, the answer will come out of it, because the answer is not separate from the problem. So looking at traditional based is, reducing or avoiding distress, trying to, avoid the pain, moving away from the pain, moving away from anything that, tends to give us stress. We look at it as an external cure, which could be, maybe too much medications, alcohol, using alcohol or drug abuse to numb ourselves out, eating disorders, trying to, numb our feelings out. A lot of times we go into denial of our chronic pain. We push the limits, and what happens when we push the limits, we, go into relapse and flare-ups. And the idea of this practice will cure me. So looking at the mindfulness-based, paradigm shift, is acceptance and distress awareness. So you're looking at what is bothering you, You're moving forward, with curiosity. And then the internal healing aspect of it is when we take responsibility and we act on what we have learned, which are the choices. So we're really reframing suffering. And one of the sayings a lot of people probably have heard is pain may not be a choice, but suffering is optional. Next slide, please. So the hindrances. So it's the negative mental states that prevent seeing clearly. Doubt, aversion, desire, restlessness. The sloth is physical laziness, and the torpor is the mental laziness, where we lack energy. And these are really barriers to the practice itself. Next one, please. Oh, wait, before you do that, can you go back one more time, please? Yeah, so 99% of the time, the stress response is created in our minds. We're creating in our own minds. And what we think really affects us physically. So that's the most important thing, that if we could change our thoughts, we could change our level of pain. Next slide, please. So responding with loving kindness and compassion. And John Kabat-Zinn wrote, mindful attention includes a stance of compassion, interest, friendliness, open-heartedness toward the experience observed in the present moment, regardless of how pleasant or aversive it may be, which is really hard for us with people in chronic pain. It's really hard to feel compassionate when the pain is just creating havoc in our lives and we feel like everything is taken away from us and we have so much loss. So to be compassionate towards the pain is like, it really contradicts what we're actually experiencing, the pain itself. But the whole idea is to look at that. Just because we have pain doesn't mean that we are less than. And because of our society, that we live in, we feel that if we're not able to do a lot or work a full-time job, then we are worthless. So if we're worthless, we have a hard time with compassion. So this is a major part of mindfulness that a lot of people have a hard time with. And it's normal to have a hard time with it because the physical body feeling that we're feeling goes completely against it. So what we're learning to do is to not allow the pain to overcome us, but to look at it as a part of what we're experiencing. And it takes a long time. I mean, if somebody told me this at the very beginning, I would tell them they were full of garbage. But it does take, a while, and it is a process, and it is possible. So the main part is non-judging and patience, acceptance for, where we're at, and the act of letting go. Next slide, please. So we're looking at, wisdom, awareness of the true nature of the mind, compassion, and the metta practice. So what the metta practice, it means in Sanskrit, is love, kindness, friendliness. And what we need to cultivate loving kindness, not only towards ourselves, but to all people. And what also happens when we have chronic pain is that we tend to get angry at other people, or we may be resentful because we feel that our life has stopped and has changed and everybody else is okay. And we can't understand why people can't see our pain or understand it. So just as hard it is to have compassion for ourselves, it's hard for us to have compassion for others. And this also is a process. Next slide, please. So reconnecting to the body. So we know what the mind and the body are not separate, but because of the chronic pain, we do get separated. So there are complex mechanisms between the body and the mind, and we try to strive for homeostasis. So part of mindfulness, part of the healing process with chronic pain is to get a balance back, to get a quality of life. So we pay attention in order to strengthen these connections. And if we have distraction, we may initially experience an increase in discomfort as we start to pay attention. And, I think you're going to hear the same themes over and over again, but maybe said in different ways. So the main part is to proceed gently when reconnecting to the body, and to dip in and out of sensations by returning to the breath frequently. And a good example about that is another colleague of mine who has chronic pain. We went to an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction class, and everybody was sitting on the floor on their little pillows. And my friend and I, who have chronic pain, were not able to do that. So we had to sit in these chairs, which were completely uncomfortable. So right away, we felt like something's missing here. They're not connecting to what's going on in our bodies. And while we were doing the mindfulness, it was really hard to stay in it because we were so uncomfortable. So what I felt myself doing, at that time, was to go into guided imagery of trying to lower my pain level. And once I was able to lower my pain level, then I was able to focus more on the mindfulness and on the breathing. But that dipping in and out is, I think, what we all do, and it's a way of taking care of ourselves. It's self-care, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. And the main part also about reconnecting to the body is that it impacts the brain and our immune function. It starts to develop. What they've seen with mindfulness and by reconnecting is that it increases positive effect, it lowers stress levels, it increases our awareness, it increases attention and acceptance, that it increases our psychological makeup of how we're feeling, our memory increases, and our capacity to remember also increases. So next slide, please. So reconnecting to the body is basic. And this is, an acronym just to help us remember, these major points, which is breathing, staying in the present moment. And we're going to be doing some breathing, in a little while. But when you do breathe and you're focusing on your breath, you are in the moment. Attitude for compassion to yourself, dealing with the sensations that we're experiencing, developing insight, which is really looking, closer into ourselves and looking at our emotions and our fears and our thoughts, and the choices of, instead of reacting to the pain, we're responding to the pain, which is very different, because when we're reacting, we have a lot of those negative thoughts that are in our mind. And when we're responding, it's really self-care. It's like, okay, my body is sending me a message and I need to take care of it. So we're really taking responsibility for our own healing. Next one, please. So step 1 is the breath, and it's considered the anchor. So we're turning inward toward the body and we pay attention to the breath. It's the connection between the mind and body, and it requires stopping, which is, concentrating practice, to calm the mind. And it steadies, composes, and unifies the mind. And what we're doing is we're shifting awareness. When most people do mindfulness, they sit with a, really nice posture, or you could be lying down, but really to develop a stance of dignity and to really open up the chest and to allow the breath, to go in and out. And next slide, please. The attitude in which we do it, which is a caring attitude, which is, the self-care, and it's really important that the attitude too is the practice, that we really make an effort to put it into our daily lives as much as possible. And for a lot of us, we can't do 45 minutes, we can't do a half an hour, we can't do 20 minutes, but maybe we can do 15 minutes, or maybe we could do 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So whatever we're able to do is fine, as long as we're getting, a really good response from it. So I really want everybody to remember, not to try to compare yourself to everybody else, but to go with your body and what you're able to do. Next one, please. So the different factors, which are called the pillars of mindfulness, which is non-judging, having patience for yourself, acceptance, and I'm going to talk to you about acceptance of how I see it with chronic pain. It's not just accepting your pain, but it's really accepting that due to the trauma that started your chronic pain or condition, your body has changed. And with the changes in your body, that's who you are right now. And that's the acceptance. So that you're letting go of the past, you're dealing with your body as it is now, and then moving forward. And that's part of the letting go of the past. What I've learned is that if I hold in any kind of anger or stress, it makes my pain worse. So if it's going to make my pain worse, it's going to make my mindfulness, a little harder to do. So what I do is I just let all those emotions go. I look at them, I deal with them if I'm able to deal with them, and I let them go. The trust is having trust in yourself and learning how to have trust in people again, because I know we lose trust in people, especially going to medical providers, practitioners, when we feel that they have let us down or they really don't understand us. So we're redeveloping that trust again. And beginner's eyes, that when we start off in mindfulness practice, we're like babies learning how to breathe again and how to deal with ourselves. And it's the same thing with chronic pain, that when we get through the acceptance stage and we move forward, we're a different person. We're a completely different person. We may look a lot, and we may look the same. Our voice may be the same, but our experience have changed, who we are right now. And the non-striving. So not like pushing ourselves all the time, but just to allow us just to be. And all these factors really help mobilize our inner resources, which make us stronger people. Next slide, please. So sensations. So stay with pure physical sensations. And once again, this is hard for us, at the beginning. But with practice, we're able to look at it and then to change it, changing with our breath. And we're going to be looking at our stories that we say to ourselves and the pain scripts that we have written for ourselves, or the situations that caused our pain. That script, we're looking to change that. So we want to deconstruct that. So next slide, please. So some of the physical sensations, especially at the beginning stages of having chronic pain when it starts, these are just some of them. The burning sensation, throbbing, aching, stabbing, twisting, ripping, either heat or cold or both at the same time, dull pain, feeling of tearing, cramping, tightness, pinching, gnawing, numb, stinging, tickling, and I'm sure tingling. And I'm sure, people in the audience can say many, many more physical sensations. Next slide, please. So going from those sensations, to inner sight, which are the emotions, what we're doing is looking closely and clearly at those sensations. So when we're in our practice, we're noticing them. We're just noticing them. Okay, this is pain. Okay, this is a ripping feeling. We're not reacting to them, but we're noticing, and we're seeing what is really happening. And really, by doing that, we have an amazing effect on our pain level. Next slide, please. So these are some of the stories that we tell ourselves due to our experiences, and these are real. They're not fake. This is from our experience. We feel that our life is over because when you have pain that's not going away, everything stops. So you feel like your life is over. These thoughts about I will always be in agony because you're trying different treatments and they're not working. And, months go by, years go by, and you think, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my family? What's going to happen to my future? I do not make any contribution. I am not important to anyone. I am worthless. I can't live this way anymore. And a lot of us with chronic pain, the majority of us do have suicidal thoughts. And it's not that we want to kill ourselves. We just want the pain to end. And sometimes just having that thought is a way of getting a few moments of thinking, oh my God, no pain. But we really don't want to kill ourselves. We're really looking for a way to get some relief from the pain and to get some normalcy back into our life. For some people, they may feel like they're responsible for their pain. Maybe they were in an accident, or maybe they weren't watching their diet, or for religious belief. So they really feel this guilt and the shame, and they feel like they deserve it. I am a burden, which is, the story that most of us feel because we can't do things by ourselves, like maybe open a door or carry a bag of groceries or a quart of milk from the refrigerator to the table. And we have to ask people for help. We feel like we are a burden. And these are true scenarios and true feelings that we have when we have chronic pain. Next slide, please. So the emotional responses to the stories are really important to look at, because the more we are in these responses, the more our pain levels get higher, and the more the negative thinking kind of takes over our whole existence. So, the fear of having pain, the anger, the frustration, despair, hopeless, and these are all real. I'm not saying these are not real at all. These are real because of what's going on in our bodies, in our experience. Hopelessness, grief, blame, depression, denial, regret, rage, resistance, loss, anxiety, separation, shame. And we could feel all of these, within a 5-minute period. And it goes up and down. But the stories really create more of these emotions. And then those emotions really higher our pain level and our stress level. Next, please. So what influences our perception of pain? Our parents, how we were raised. And in Western civilization, we're not taught how to deal with pain at all. We're just told that, you're a sissy or get over it. Boys don't cry, be a big girl. So we're getting these messages that are telling us to push the pain away, not deal with these feelings. Genetically, there may be certain conditions that run through families, and not only is it running through the family, but you're also picking up everybody's experience of their pain and how they dealt with. So if you see all of these family members are suffering, then you think, okay, I have this disease, so I'm just going to suffer. And this influences how we deal with our pain. Anticipation of what's going to happen, what happens when the medicine wears off, or, I went to acupuncture and it's 3 days later and my pain is back. The thoughts of, of not only of how we see ourselves, but how other people see us, or, the comments that they make to us about, moving on, or did you try this, or did you try that? So the thoughts, emotions, anger, forgiveness is really hard for most of us. Any kind of stress or tension creates more pain. And if you've had a previous history of abuse, physical, sexual abuse, or witnessed something, or trauma, our whole body is highly sensitized already. So you put pain on top of that, it is much worse. Also, if there's been a history of depression, and then you put pain on top of that, it's going to make the depression worse. Most people with chronic pain do develop depression because they're really connected, in the brain. And, that really needs to be looked at also, because that could create more, suicidal thoughts. But all these influence our perception of pain, our thoughts and everything. And one point also is that it used to be thought that, the gray matter in our brain actually dies, when we have pain or aging. chronic fatigue syndrome. And what they've learned, through MRIs and studies is that the gray matter doesn't die, it just shrinks. So by learning new techniques, learning new skills, we can actually grow back the gray matter, which, helps with our cognition, awareness, our thoughts, our consciousness. So even though all these influence us, there is possibilities that we can, heal ourselves. So the next slide, please. So choice. So looking at the picture in the middle of the screen is, the emotional and physical pain, what it looks like on the outside and what's going on the inside. And just before how we looked at the paradigm shift, earlier between traditional and mindfulness, it's almost the same thing of reacting and responding. So the reacting is that we're reacting to the pain, to the muscle tension, and we're trying to avoid, push away. We develop maladaptive responsive, negative responses. We increase our disability because we're not dealing with our pain in the healing manner. And looking at the respond part, which is really taking care of ourselves, is learning techniques like, mindfulness, relaxation, choice, excuse me, my voice is going, acceptance and equanimity, which is really a mental calmness, having composure, being even-tempered, don't lose our balance. And this way of responding reduces, the maladaptive, the negative responses that we have learned, and it does improve our quality of life. So the next slide, please. So just to go a little bit into the research, but before that, I was looking up, is mindfulness harmful to anybody? And what I just found, just doing my research, is that if somebody, has psychosis or a major depressive disorder, that any type of like long-term retreats where there's like long periods of silence can be detrimental to people like that. So, you really, if you have, any condition, it's really important to speak to your instructor. If you're taking a course, let them know, what your conditions are, what your needs are, so they can also help evaluate if this program is right for you. They may suggest something that's a little, simpler. Also, people who have had, traumatic histories may have, just went blank, not flare-ups, just went blank, but, to witness things, flashbacks, sorry about that, of having flashbacks also. So that's why it's important to speak to the instructor, so that if something happens, you could feel comfortable going to them, or the instructor will be looking out to see how you are. And every time that I do mindfulness or guided imagery, I am always looking at everybody in the group to see what they're going through. If I, pick up on anything, if I see somebody upset, then, I will go over to them and talk with them. If they need to leave, that's fine also. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, because what's happening is that because you're listening to your body, things start to come up. And that's why it's important to speak to, the instructor beforehand. So some of the research, and there's a couple of pages of this, so you could just go on, go through this, by yourselves. I know some of the dates are a little bit older, but this was really major breakthroughs, and mainly all the research shows that mainly positive effects for chronic pain, illness, depression, anxiety, trauma. Next page, please. So neuroplasticity is a key word. That's changes in neural pathways in the synapses. And really, neuroplasticity is able to change the brain in response to your experience. So I was talking about, what happens with gray matter earlier. So by learning new skills, you are changing your brain. So nothing's set in stone. You know, when we go to the doctor and they say you just have to live with it, no, that's not true. I mean, there's always possibility that something can shift or to move, and you can get more relief. And what I found out in my own practice was that by clearing my mind of everything, it gives me more energy just to focus on the physical part of me, you know, of what I need to do for myself. So it's really important to learn new things and not to give up hope. And I know it's, you know, it's so easy to give up hope when you're in so much pain and you don't see anything coming. But we really need to hold in there and realize that there are possibilities. There really are lots of possibilities, and never give up hope about it. And, you know, looking through this, just looking at, you know, down there, increase in left hemisphere activity, which is positive feelings, that through mindfulness, you do develop better feelings also, you know, about yourself and everything around you, learning how to relax better. You know, it improves your attention, decision-making, motivation. It helps with emotions. Next one, please. And I think I'll just let you go through that yourself. Next one, please. Depression, yeah, what they've done is studies 50% reduction in relapse of major depression. And that's an amazing accomplishment, you know, amazing. Next one, anxiety. And go to the one that says pain, I think the next one. So one thing I want to say about decrease in pain and catastrophizing, that's a whole nother subject. And I'm working on an article about that and about the negative connotation that it does have for people in chronic pain. So I won't even go into that because I'll go off in a tirade. But to look at the other parts, Dr. Jackie Gardner-Nix has seen in her studies, you know, about increasing quality of life, improving social functioning, you know, reduce body pain. And there's a few more pages, but I really want to get into, I'm just looking through them. Go to the one that says a special thank you, please. I know it's a couple of slides. Yeah, so mainly I really want to thank Mary French for giving me permission to use most of her slides. She is a wonderful woman. She and I wrote the book, Making the Invisible Visible together. And on pages, if you have the book, on pages 101 to 112, she really goes into, you know, developing your mindfulness practice. And I really want to thank Mary French for helping out on this webinar today. And then, so what I want to do, the next slide, and I don't want anybody really to look at the next slide because I want you to experience this first. So if you're able to, you know, get in a comfortable position, you know, lie down on the floor. If you need to put a pillow under you, or, you know, if you rather stand or lean against something, you know, whatever feels okay for you is fine. And even if you get into a comfortable position and you start to, you know, feeling more pain or aches, get up, move around, right? Because remember, you're developing a relationship with mindfulness, you know, with your breathing. So I want everybody to be able to move, you know, through it so that you can focus on the breathing. And if you want to, you can close your eyes, or if you don't feel comfortable yet, you just pick a point, you know, that's staring, you know, directly in front of you. That's fine too. You may close your eyes later on, but it's up to you. It's really up to you. And I want you first to take just a breath of really breathing through your nose and slowly breathing out through your mouth. So you're taking a breath in through your nose and then slowly breathing out through your mouth. And if you're able to, you could put one hand on your chest and one hand on your stomach. And what we're just going to be noticing is, you know, what's happening to our body when we're breathing. So when we breathe in through our nose and we breathe out through our mouth. And this time, what I'd like you to try is to breathe into your belly. And, I'm going to say this over and over again. If I give you an instruction and it's something you don't feel comfortable with doing, or you feel any pain, I want you to stop. And I want you just to breathe your normal way. And even by breathing your normal way and just listening to what I'm saying or just watching me will give you some kind of effect anyway. Your brain is taking it in. So it's believing that it's, breathing in the way that I'm telling you to breathe, even though you're breathing the way your body is breathing right now, if that makes sense. So what we're going to be doing is we're breathing in through our nose, and our stomach is getting bigger. And when we breathe out through our mouths, our stomachs become flatter. So what happens when we have chronic pain and conditions, we stop breathing, we're holding everything in, our bodies are getting tense, and most of us are hyperventilating without even realizing that we're hyperventilating. So just the mere fact of, putting your hand on your chest and one on your stomach, first of all, you're touching yourself, you're getting back, to what's going on in the present. It's an anchor. And by breathing in and breathing out and focusing on the breathing, you've cleared everything else out of your mind. So all you are doing is that you're in the present breathing. And just a simple act of that will bring down your pain level, brings down depression, stress level. So we're breathing in through our nose, the bellies get bigger. Breathing out through our mouths, and our stomachs get flatter. And if you want to try just breathing in on the count of 3, and then breathing out on the count of 3. So breathing in, 1, 2, 3, and slowly breathe out, 3, 2, 1. And again, 1, 2, 3, and slowly breathe out, 3, 2, 1. So I'd just like to bring to mind an interaction with someone that makes you feel badly, only moderately badly, so that you can feel the stress in your body, but not get overwhelmed by it. Visualize the situation until it makes you a little uncomfortable. And now say to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. Suffering and a part of life. And if you want, you could put your hands over your heart. Feel the warmth of your hands, the gentle pressure of your hands on your chest. Notice the rhythm of your chest, how it rises and falls beneath your hands. Now say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I accept myself just as I am. And for the last 1 or 2 phrases, use whatever words speak to your particular situation, such as, may I be safe. May I forgive myself. May I be happy and free from suffering. May I safely endure this pain. May I find peace in my heart. May I be strong. May I protect myself. May I learn to live with ease and well-being. May I accept the circumstances of my life. May we learn to live together in peace. And just give yourself a nice, gentle hug for being so brave and courageous, to do this, self-compassion break meditation. And when you're ready, you could, open your eyes. Don't get up suddenly. Let yourself get acclimated. If you were able to stretch, do a little stretch. And just notice, what you're experiencing. And the rest of the slide presentations are different resources. They're not all the resources. They're just some of them that I compiled together, and some of Mary French's, resources also. Please use the self-compassion break. You could do it as many times as possible during the day. It's wonderful. You can record it into, your phone and play it back so you can do it. There's so many apps, calm.com. There's so many different apps out there that you could do little meditations during the day. And, sometimes we say we don't have time, but we do have time. We do have time for this. And the main thing about the breathing is that it's free. It's free. All we have to do is just allow ourselves to, to settle into ourselves and breathe. And we really do get more of a perspective and able to focus better and realize, what we need. So that's a little bit, sorry I rushed through everything today, but that's a little bit for that now. And I'm just open for any kind of questions and see if I can answer them.
Great. Thank you so much, Gwen. That was really wonderful. I know I appreciated even though it was short, a little breathing break. So we have a few questions. I'm going to read through some of them. I do want everyone to know that this whole PowerPoint, as well as a recording of this webinar, are going to be available on our website. So we'll make sure you get a link to that in case you want to look at some of these slides in more detail afterward. So just keep that in mind. But we'll try to get to as many questions as we can in the next 5 to 7 minutes here. So Gwen, one of the questions was from someone named Kay. And she asked about when reconnecting to the body, you had said that you may initially experience a sort of increase in discomfort as you start to pay attention to it. Does that initial discomfort tend to subside with regular practice?
Well, I think that's a very individual question too. I find what happens with me, I could only talk about myself really. Once I go into it, I'm feeling the pain and I go into it, and then I'm in nirvana. That's how it feels like, that I'm in a space where I'm just, I don't know, nothing almost like. And I really don't feel pain for a while. And then maybe if I'm doing it for a while, I will feel pain. And what I do is I breathe into it. And that's when I use the guided imagery also. So I may breathe in a cool, icy type of, breath to bring down the pain level. And then once that pain level comes down, then I'm able to go back into the mindfulness also. But everybody's individual, and I think, really depends on our pain levels during the day of, what we're able to do and not able to do. That's my experience.
So we have another question from Aaron. He's asking if you can speak to the benefits of practicing mindfulness regularly as opposed to like when you're having breakthrough pain or severe anxiety or depression. Like, so does it need to be practiced? Is it better to do it constantly or just in the moment? That sort of thing.
I mean, I think the main research will show you that if you do it on a continual basis, then there's more improvement, in your brain structure. But that's for, I would say, maybe healthy people. So, with chronic pain, I mean, you do what you're able to do. So if you're only able to do 5 minutes a day, you may be able to do 10 minutes a day the next day. So I wouldn't try to close yourself in, anyway. I mean, if you could do it a little bit each day, then that's fine. Maybe you could build on it. And, certain days you'll be able to do more, other days you won't. But I don't want you to feel bad about yourself if you can't do it because, you're dealing with your body also. So I feel whatever you can do is fine. Yeah.
Great. Do you have any sort of tricks or tips for, prioritizing mindfulness or ways that you can kind of work it into your day?
Yeah. Well, what happens too is that after you do it for a while, it just becomes part of you. So it's a part of me. So I will be meditating without even realizing that I'm meditating. I could be sitting something, even I could be watching TV or something. And all of a sudden I realize I'm really not watching TV, but I've gone into a meditative state. So it does become part of you for some people and maybe not for everybody. And I think I lost the question again. Can you say it again, please?
Just any sort of tips or tricks for kind of building it into your day or finding the time for it.
Yeah, I would, make a schedule and, think of the best time for you it is to do it. Is it the first thing when you wake up? Is it after you eat a meal, before you eat a meal? Is it when the kids leave, for school? If you're working, can you go take a 5-minute rest, and do it. So it's really, I think you really do have to put it into your daily structure. I mean, when I was taking an 8-week course, I made sure I did it, I think in the evening every day, or maybe in the morning, I can't remember. So it is important to try to fit it into your schedule so it becomes a part of your daily routine before it becomes, just part of who you are. Yeah.
Another question we have is from Jessica. How do you go about finding a reputable mindfulness workshop or training or event?
That's a good question. And one of the resources here too, I'm just looking. Under the resource list, the University of Massachusetts, other classes. I mean, there are some websites you could go into. One great place, Inside Meditation Community of Washington, DC, which is imcw.org, will be on the resources also. Offers classes, retreats, and other events. And Tara Brock, who is an amazing woman, offers classes, and she has her, her free meditations also. But I'm trying to think. It's really of asking people where they have been trained. I could look more into that one if there's a central location or if anybody knows of a central place where you see if somebody is reputable or not. And also going by what other people, say if they took the class and what their experience was. But I could look into that also.
I will say that for myself, I've had good luck just Googling, so my state, Connecticut, and then meditation center or meditation retreat. And that's how I've found some different places. And there's so many places that offer free workshops and that sort of thing, which is really nice. So another question we have is, do you use mindfulness in your chronic pain support groups, and how do you incorporate it there?
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to say too, I'm not sure if I said it at the beginning that, I think I did say it. Now you're seeing the fibro fog, settling in after being so coherent for a while. That, oh, never mind. Say the question again, please.
So they were asking, how do you use this in your chronic pain support group, on the Pain Connection conference calls?
Yeah. So what I do in all the support groups and what we teach people in the training is to leave the last 15 minutes of the session to do like the mindfulness, break that we just did, the compassion break, just breathing, deep breathing, guided imagery. Yeah. So we always incorporate it. And I feel that, all the things that we talked about today, I incorporate when I'm talking to people about being mindful and, self-care and, learning how to incorporate different techniques into your life. So it is part of all our programs, yes.
Great. And just as a reminder to everyone, so we have through Pain Connection and the program that Gwenn started, which is now part of US Pain, and we have 15 in-person support groups across the country, and all these folks are trained by Gwenn in mindfulness and other techniques. So you can look up that information on our website to see if there's one in your state. But even if there isn't one in your state, Gwenn offers these really cool conference calls through Pain Connection, where basically they're 3 times a month. There's an afternoon session, an evening session, and a weekend one. And you can just call in from your phone for free, which means you can be laying in bed, you can be on the floor, you can be wherever you are in that moment and call in. And you don't have to talk. You can if you want to, but Gwenn leads, different sort of themed little sessions, and I usually do some sort of meditation at the end of those, I believe. So if you do, try this some more, you can look into maybe joining one of those calls next month. And again, all that information is on our website or on Pain Connection's website, which is just painconnection.org. So since it's 2:12, I think we're going to wrap up. But I want to say thank you so much to Gwenn for sharing your time with us. And I think this was I thought it was really beneficial and helpful to me. And I think it's, it's a great skill and a tool to have in your toolbox. Obviously, there's no one grand solution, but this is a great skill to have and to work on. So we really, really appreciate you. So to everyone, thank you for joining. And our next webinar will be on September 18th. So that will be during Pain Awareness Month. And we're very delighted to have Dr. Abachi speaking with us. And he's actually going to be talking a little bit about neuroplasticity and the brain and pain. So it sort of ties into this. But the registration link will be available soon. So, check your inbox for updates or check out our website. So again, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.